Welcome to another episode of the Nashville Dads. For this episode, we have on Wes Boling from Club and Country. We talk about sports bringing your family together, loving soccer and doing a podcast about Nashville SC, and about his year of dealing with family health issues. Wes is having a year of extreme ups and downs, and he was really candid about what challenges he is facing this year while helping his wife recover from a medical event and how to be present for his 3-year-old. It's a lot about facing darkness when the light gets dim, solo parenting in cities you've never lived in, and gratitude for the community you have. If you follow Nashville SC, please make sure to check out his podcast that he does with Tim Sullivan, and it's called Club and Country, and I hope you enjoy the episode. Wes Boling, thanks for doing an episode. This is my attempt at an official sounding intro to make it sound like we're actually starting the episode. So Wes Boling, thanks for doing an episode of the Nashville Dads.
It's a pleasure to join you. This is cathartic for me, honestly. I've heard so many dads open up on this show, and it's a privilege to get to join and do the same. I'm a regular listener, and so it's a privilege to chat with you.
Nice. Well, I mean, I listen to your podcast every time you release it. Also, what Club and Country, right? That's the minivan that you call the podcast. Is that right?
That is it. Yeah, the minivan that I call a podcast. I like that.
Don't tell Tim that. I'm going to immediately edit that because I'm pretty sure he came up with the name Club and Country, didn't he?
He did.
Okay, cool. Sorry, Tim. I'm cracking jokes.
We'll rename it to Pacifica, I think.
Yes.
I believe it's going to be, or maybe a Caravan.
Maybe a Caravan. Maybe something.
Grew up with a Chrysler Plymouth, a beige Chrysler
course.
Plymouth when I was a kid. So, but Plymouth is, of course, a soccer team in its own right, so that might confuse people.
Maybe Astro and Country. I'm trying to think of other classic van names from the 90s and early 2000s.
We had the Astro, too. That was a classic with the track lighting.
Yep.
Oh, the blue stripe across the side, white van. Yeah.
The best part about those vans is whenever like they got passed down to like the youngest sibling, and then that sibling would drive at like 90 miles per hour down the highway, a speed that van was never meant to drive like ever.
Yeah, that van actually never went 65. It either went 30 or it went 95. There was the cop would actually pulled over at 65. Like, this has been stolen.
Like, I don't know what you're doing in this van right now.
There's a 30-year-old driving this? That doesn't fit.
I don't know.
No.
I don't know what's happening here. So you're in Omaha currently.
Yeah.
How did it feel, and you're a pretty big Tennessee fan, how did it feel to watch UT win the national championship for men's baseball?
Like home came to me.
Did it really? That's so cool.
Yeah, I mean, I grew up going to the University of Tennessee every Saturday for football games since age 5. This is
seriously?
Yeah, it's I don't trash talk other fan bases very often because I take it very seriously. Okay. And it's not a lighthearted thing for me. Like it's sports, right? It's perspective. It's sports. I'm not like life or death. It doesn't ruin my weekend if Tennessee loses, but it's more than that, right? It's family.
Yeah.
And so, we're in Omaha for some long-term medical stuff for my wife after a honestly life or death journey that is looking very much up now, but there's a very long road ahead. So we're here. We've been through it since February, just absolutely been through it. I'm happy to talk about some of that.
Yeah.
And so for the University of Tennessee baseball team to even come to Omaha to play in a bucket list tournament for me to get to attend the College World Series was special. My family came in for it, which made it even more special, and I got to watch it with them. And then we won the freaking national championship.
You in like game 3, like in the last game possible, right?
Yeah, by one run.
Yeah.
In a miraculous slide. And look, I'm a person of faith. I don't believe that God cares who wins a sporting event. I don't believe that. I do believe he takes great joy in the joy that his people take in sporting events when it's in its proper perspective. And I felt very seen throughout that whole process. And I got to take my son to his first UT sporting event, which was going to be my answer, by the way, at the end of the show for the thing I'm looking forward to in his future. Now I got to figure something else out.
I have backup questions. Okay.
Sweet.
So you're good.
All right. But to be through what we've been through, look, it doesn't change what's happened with my wife's health. It doesn't change what's happened with the journey we have ahead, but it provides just a bit of light during a dark time. And so in very bright Tennessee orange light at that. And so when the final out was recorded, I broke down, and there's actually video of it. The marketing team from the rehab place where we're staying came with us to the game because they loved the story so much. Yeah. And they got footage of the final out. Extraordinarily unflattering to see myself just letting it all out. But when I did, it wasn't because of a championship. It was because family was there. It was because of what that moment meant kind of in the grand scheme of things.
Now, I'm one of 3 kids. I'm the only one who didn't go to Indiana University for college. So like we have the constant text thread of IU basketball, IU soccer. Like we're paying attention to IU like at all times. Recent years, their women's college basketball team has been really good. And like realistically, Indiana hasn't won a national championship in basketball while I've been alive.
Yeah.
They won it in March of 87. I was born in May of 87.
Yep.
So I know like if they ever even made it to the Final Four, which I think like 2000, 2002 was last time they made it that far. I know like I would be like weirdly emotional in ways I did not anticipate to be emotional about a game that lasts 40 minutes, you know?
Yeah. Well, for me, it's because sports are that vehicle for togetherness, right?
Yeah.
It's almost not about the game. It's about sharing the game. And it's about, for me, 6 hours round trip to Knoxville all my life. Or when I studied abroad in Europe and really fell in love with soccer, I call myself a late in life soccer fan. That's not true because it was still early in my life, but I fell in love with the game when I was 21 years old. In Europe during the World Cup in Germany, and we were studying abroad in like 9 different cities. We're hopping around, and so we were in France when they won the round of 16 match, and we're rioting in the streets. We were in Germany the day after the World Cup final. We watched the final in Prague, in the old town square with French fans on one side, Italian fans on the other, and I realized, soccer's just like college football in that regard, and that it's so tribal. And the passion is so real because it's about more than just 90 minutes on the pitch. And I came home and immediately chose a team, and then got into, use the broadcast side and my background there to get into the soccer broadcasting game, not because I enjoyed the game, but more because I enjoyed that same spirit and passion there. And to bring it back to the dad's realm, to share that with my son, even just a little bit, so far in his life. He's 3. He's little. He doesn't get it. But it's really special.
It's a really cute moment. We have some Nashville SC shirts for Josh, my 2.5-year-old. I have the 8-year-old Holly, 6-year-old Magnolia, and 2.5-year-old Josh. And like even tonight when putting him down to bed, he like wore a softer Nashville SC shirt. He's like, "Oh, soccer shirt?" And I'm like, it's a weird sense of pride that my 2.5-year-old knows the phrase soccer shirt,
Right? No, I get it. Cameron the other day said, "Okay, so Tennessee's wearing orange. What color's the losing team going to be?" And I that is the telltale sign that he's not been a Tennessee fan for very long. That we're just going to be the winning team. But isn't it special to see it through their eyes? Like so much of parenting, right? And it's cliche, but it's so true that when you see it through your kid's eyes, it acquires a different light.
It does.
It's so special.
It's actually, I think a lot of people our age are kind of doing like the deconstruction of their childhood, going back, dealing with like childhood wounds, all that stuff. Because you have a child, and like that's what's terrifying and energizing about it is you see the first time they experience something, and it makes you immediately be like, "Well," like whenever my girls went to kindergarten, it's like, "What was it like when I went to kindergarten?" Oh, I have some stuff to process. Okay, now hopefully that makes me more mentally present, more empathetic, and more understanding of their ups and downs.
Well, and there's that old saying, right? Well, we did X, Y, or Z. We turned out okay. We rode in the backs of pickup trucks, or we didn't have car seats, or we, were spanked or whatever. And I love turning that question on its head and saying, maybe I turned out okay. Some days my wife might disagree with that. But also how much better can this generation turn out if we break whatever cycle? And my parents were amazing parents and continue to be, but there will always be things that we learn as a society, and we grow 30 years later, and we will do differently, just as there are more things that I would like to emulate my parents. And how much better, and then goodness knows our kids are going to be even better parents than we are, right? It advances each generation.
We got speed bumps put on our street, and when it was during COVID, so we had to go door to door, which was and get signatures for the people on the streets to prove that they wanted the speed bumps, which was a fun experience to walk door to door during the pandemic and knock on doors and be like, "Can I talk to you for 5 minutes?"
I'm sure it was.
And one of the couples was like, "My kids didn't need speed bumps. Why do your kids need speed bumps?" And I was like, are you anti-speed bumps? Like, I don't like, do I need, you're saying my kid didn't get ran over, so your kid should be fine is not really the answer I expected.
Survivorship bias is real. It really
basically. Mine didn't die. Why? Yours probably won't die. That's okay. So once again, this won't cost you any money, and it'll be taxpayer money. I think I've already lost the sale here, so I'll just move on to the next house. Thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it.
So the biggest lesson I've learned as the president of the University of Tennessee debate team for a year or two there was Sometimes an argument's not worth having.
Pretty
You've
much.
already lost. It's
Yep.
okay.
Pretty much. Did you go to UT for undergrad?
I did. I
Sweet.
did. Yeah,
Nice.
journalism major. It's kind of the thing that we did in our family. My sister
Okay.
was 2 years younger than me. She went. My brother, 12 years younger than me, and he went. And yeah, I did. And majored in journalism, covered 3 football coaches in 4 years as a reporter right
Oh,
after
dang.
school there too. So maybe I'm the curse. Maybe I am the problem, and I should have gone to Indiana. I don't know.
No, you shouldn't have. Well, I mean,
Bad example. Bad example.
No. It's just that, like, well, actually, that meant because I'm pretty sure in those years, Tennessee won more than 6 games in that time span. So it's still probably better than IU football.
Well,
So
that's
your curse would have
fair.
been welcomed.
Better than IU football is kind of like saying my kids didn't die with the lack
Exactly.
of
Yeah.
football.
It's the
Maybe
equivalent of
it's
like,
not the
well,
standard.
we technically haven't shut the football team down yet. So therefore, the once every 5 years getting a NFL level talent, that's worth something, isn't
Yeah.
it?
Yeah, there you go.
Isn't it?
Hey, you always know who to follow because there are so few of them. You can really pin your hopes and dreams on them.
That's right. My so the 4 years I was in college would have been 2006 to 2010, which was like first 2 years was huge IU Kelvin Sampson scandal. Can never cheer
Oh,
for
yeah.
Houston, by the way.
Doing
Ever.
stuff that it would be legal now, right?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, there was the text messaging. He texted Eric Gordon like 1,000 times or something like that to get him to switch from going to Illinois to Indiana.
That's
But that was the like first 3 years of Tom Crean's tenure. So they won like 4 games, the first, like 3 awful years. But the men's soccer team was fantastic for those 4 years. So that's whenever I learned that like Indiana, all my friends were going there. That was whenever I learned that IU had a fantastic soccer program.
Oh, nice. Yeah. So
So
was that your entry into being a soccer fan yourself, or were you already into it?
yeah, so I grew up playing a little bit.
Okay.
I would like to say for my senior year of high school, I got the senior sympathy spot. So, started, I'm trying to think which dad joke I like better. Did I start center bench or was I left, right, out? I'm not sure which position I was, but I was one of the two. I was
That's good.
stats. I did stats for the soccer team.
You were just a very far out left wing.
Exactly. Yeah. I played wings. Usually you like to have the white from the line on your shoes. Mine was because I was rubbing my feet in the line.
Fair.
That's
That's
what
fair.
was
Yeah.
wrong. Now I would have graduated high school in 2006. So that's when I was like just sitting at home for a summer with friends. And then someone was like, let's start watching World Cup games.
Yeah.
And it is extremely exciting. Then 2010 graduated college, had a summer of working odd jobs. And whenever I wasn't working odd jobs, I was watching soccer. So, and then like I think in 2008, I discovered the Euro because I was a summer RA. So I was like sitting behind a desk and I was like, oh, there's soccer on, I'll watch this. So yeah, that was kind of like the thing where I was like, oh, this is the level this game can be played at. This
It's
is
incredible.
insane.
And when you see it in person, and even in the MLS level, the speed and the crispness with which they pass. That's why I can't wait to take Cameron to a game because there is constant motion like a hockey game, but then you can also sit back and relax a little more like a baseball game. It's a blend of the two, and I think perfect for taking kids. If they would, maybe kick the ball off before 7:30, that would be
Maybe
really nice.
that'd be great if they didn't only do 2 or 3.
Powers that be.
Yeah. All of the Nashville SC higher ups that listen to this podcast.
Hey, I bet there are some. You've had you had every Nashville SC figure on. You got Joe Willis, you got Ben Wright, Braden Gall's associated in a tangential way. I mean,
technically, I'm from Evansville. Mike Jacobs, very strong Evansville connections. I think I can figure out the connection point. So
I'm sure you could.
Probably.
I'm sure you could. It all comes back to ski and grippos. All comes back to that.
That is a fantastic Southern Indiana, Southern Ohio, Northern Kentucky reference, Wes. Thank you. I know.
You got it. My wife lived in Evansville for a bit.
Yep.
So
I know you've done your personal research. So
yes.
That's awesome. I know you said your wife had a medical episode. And what's come with that is I know that you've had to travel to places you never thought you'd live in for a couple of months. Like you've spent some time in Canada. You're now in Omaha and stuff. How long did you spend in Canada whenever you were up there?
About 2.5 months in Canada. So
are you able to work is your job remote? You can work from wherever?
My job is ridiculous. My job is remote and also ridiculously understanding.
That's very lucky.
Yeah, we're all remote. There's an office in Nashville that we can go to if we choose to, which has been convenient when the 2-year-old or 3-year-old, whatever he was at the time, decided to be that age developmentally. But yeah, my wife, I was actually in England traveling, went to an Arsenal match with my brother in early February. My wife was visiting Canada while I went on that trip and had some business travel too. She's Canadian. She was at her family's cottage in Quebec near Ottawa and had a major health issue 2 days after I got there with her. So the plan was to get them, drive home, that next week, have a nice, quiet winter, and actually move the family to another city.
Yeah.
And that didn't happen. She was admitted to the hospital, had complications a week later that will create lifelong effects.
Mm-hmm.
And we didn't know for about 5 to 8 days whether she was going to make it. In fact, we were told she probably wouldn't.
Dude.
So we were in Ottawa. I was with her every other day in the ICU.
Yeah.
Her mom was with her those other days, and the other one of us was with Cameron, my 3-year-old, back in the cottage in Ottawa, about 90 minutes from the hospital.
Mm-hmm.
On the worst days, I was staying, right there.
Yeah, of course.
Sometimes in the waiting room.
Yeah.
Fast forward, we went back to Nashville after she made what the doctors called a miraculous recovery. Still lifelong impacts, but she can walk, she can talk, she can be mom to Cameron, just maybe not independently right now. Mm-hmm. And so we were home for 3 to 4 weeks, and then to Omaha, where we've been. So Canada from February through mid-April, Nashville until mid-May, and then Omaha since mid-May. So it's been a grind. It's been a journey, but one full of hope, especially in the past couple months.
Yeah. Was your son with you the entire time in Canada whenever you were up there?
He was. No, he was a source of stability in a lot of ways for us.
Yeah. I would imagine that because he had, whenever a kid, especially if they're less than 5, I think every kid needs a schedule, but especially whenever they're that young, you're like, okay, I got to figure out a schedule. I got to figure out activities. Mm-hmm. And I would assume it helped distract you from the other massive things happening in your life.
Absolutely. It did. I mean, Lisa was never out of my mind for a second.
Yeah, of course.
But people who haven't been through something like that, and I never had, might be prone to thinking that it's just a big dark cloud the whole time, that adversity is just always dark and deep and terrible. And I mean, so much of it was, mm-hmm. but there were always moments of light. And, even now when I tell people the story, of what we've been through as a family, they want to they're very kindly say, I can't imagine, that must just be miserable and terrible and terrifying. And in those moments, I honestly didn't always feel those feelings. At the darkest moments I did. But when you have a 3-year-old around and he's fascinated by trains and he wants to watch train videos on YouTube or go ride the light rail in Ottawa, or go have adventures in the snow, because man, it was snowy.
Yeah, you were there for some wintry months.
It was literally very dark. You can't help but still experience those moments of joy. And at the darkest times, what I wanted from my friends and from my family and from anybody who asked what they could do, look, we're 1,000 miles from home. There's not much you can practically do besides pray and encourage and share your moments of joy. Yeah. So that helped light things up too. But Cameron especially, I mean, the responsibility of being a dad meant I had no other choice but to get out of bed every day. Mm-hmm. But there were days when I took his nap with him and I would just hold him. Yeah. And the biggest challenge, honestly, Devin, was like not using him for stability, letting him organically be that source of stability, but not depending on a 3-year-old for my own well-being. And filling my own cup as well during the couple hours at the end of the day after he was in bed. That was the hardest part. He was naturally a light. I could not unload my emotions on a kid who's not developmentally ready to handle that.
Nope.
And that was tricky.
How do you think that normally you find that through community, we're able to still maintain like adult community besides like a 3-year-old community through this process? My
mother-in-law and I confided in each other a bit, and we have a good relationship. She's an outstanding mother-in-law. We're very different people, as you would expect, but she is similar enough, incidentally, to my wife in terms of the way she handles things that I, it kind of felt natural to be able to talk to her about some of those things. And then, I mean, I had a text chain going with so many friends and family that would just blow me up. And on the worst days, I didn't sit in my thoughts probably as much as I should have, honestly. Mm-hmm. On those 90-minute drives to and from the cottage, I'd be constantly on the phone with friends and family and got so much wisdom and strength from them that carried me. And when people asked what they could do, can I go to your house? If honestly, if everybody who asked if they could go by our house and check on things had been told yes, there'd be a line all the way to, down Robertson Avenue, all the way to I-40.
Yeah.
It was incredibly kind, but there's not much practically people could do.
No, you can only mow the lawn so many times.
Exactly, right? Oh, I hope somebody's been doing that, by the way. We've been in Omaha. I'll check on that. We might have
note to Wes.
We might have a forest.
Yes.
But I actually have a notes page in my phone of advice that people sent me that collected. So that sense of community felt like it was down the street. Maybe because we all work remote these days, or so many of us do anyway. We're kind of used to maintaining those connections from a long distance.
Yeah.
It felt like people were down the street, even though they weren't.
Cool. That's awesome. So I feel like in general, you seem like a pretty optimistic person. Would you say optimism is something that like is a core characteristic for you to some extent?
I think so. And I love going back to the advice that I was sent. So a good friend of mine actually is married to the granddaughter of Ross Perot's running mate.
Sure.
Jim Stockdale. It's going to take a while to unpack. The important thing to know is this guy was a Vietnam veteran, and he was a prisoner of war around the same time John McCain was. Like Hanoi Hilton. And he was asked one time, who made it out? Who were the ones that survived years and years of brutal mistreatment and torture? And who were the ones that got left behind?
Yeah.
He said the ones who died were actually the optimists.
Really?
Because the optimists died of a broken heart. Because the optimists would say, we'll be out by Christmas. We'll be out by the New Year. We'll be out by, X, Y, and Z. He said those who survived were ones who maintained hope. You must never lose faith in your ability to overcome, but you also must maintain a realistic view of the situation.
Yeah.
And it's been labeled the Stockdale paradox, which is that, holding two things in your head at once, which is, as I'm sitting across from my wife in the ICU and she's unconscious and I don't know if she's ever going to wake up again. I had to look her in the eye and realize this was real and this was dark and deep. It feels surreal and you're in shock when it's happening to you, but I could never afford to lose the hope that she was strong. But to say, she'll wake up tomorrow. Yeah. Can't do that. You can't do that to yourself. You cannot torture yourself like that. But every small gain. And what I learned especially is she got better and better. And, the doctor's literally in tears next to me as they're taking her breathing tube out because he's so amazed that she's survived this. What I learned was that bad days and good days do not exist in an equal relationship. Yeah. That bad days are points in time. We all have bad days, right? And that's true medically. It's true with our kids also, right? Yeah. But good days, when they show a skill, when they show a moment of healing, even if it's just a moment, a glimpse, those are pictures of promise. So a bad day you can wipe off. You can wipe the slate clean and say that was just a sucky day. But when you have a good day, there's meaning behind that. And that fuels that optimism and hope. And so I had to learn to become a realist. I mean, I wrote my wife's eulogy in my head driving to and from the hospital. That's how dark things were. That's how I was trying to prepare myself. And yet, here she is.
Yeah, man. So, here we are out of Canada in a different city in a rehab unit. And I think optimism has a weird, I don't want to say danger to it, but it does have it can be harmful. And I feel like I know people who are optimistic, but not realistic. And it's hard it feels mean to look at an optimist and be like, that's not reality, because hope is such a rare thing to find realistically in day-to-day life. Yeah. So when you meet someone who's optimistic, you want to encourage them, but how do you encourage them but keep them grounded at the same time? Right. It's a hard thing to do.
Right. Hopeful realism. I think people have to just figure that out for themselves too, right? You have to maintain hope. If you don't, you're lost. Yep. But you have to maintain vision. And there's a balance that honestly I still am working to strike right now. Yep. As I see her improving so amazingly. I have to still maintain a handle on what she can and can't do right now so that I can protect our son and protect her. And that's hard, but man, it's been a great lesson in what you've just said, which is striking that balance, walking that tightrope between hope and realism. And, it's not easy.
Well, I'm sure it must have also felt like whiplash because if I'm not mistaken, you went to England, you went overseas, watched Arsenal destroy Liverpool 3-1 in a game with your brother, once in a lifetime trip. And then you come back and you get met. Your year honestly seems like it's been a lot of whiplash where you're almost like, wait, what is this is one of the biggest moments of my life. This is the lowest moment of my life. This is the biggest moment of my life. This is the lowest moment of my life. How do you feel?
How do I feel? Ask me next hour. I might give you
basically, that's realistic.
I feel seen and I feel heard. Cool. That's what I feel, and that was true throughout, and when I was sitting by my wife's bedside in the darkest moments, 2 weeks after one of the sports and family highlights of my life, like you just mentioned, that Arsenal match, sitting there and all of a sudden, my wife's not responsive. She's out of it. And we don't know if she's going to wake up. I would take 5 minutes and look her in the eye or hold my head down and just bawl. Yeah. And I would take 5 minutes and just look at my phone and text people and get hope from people. And that hope was, it's like when the airplane's taxiing and it has to back up and it has to use the external engine for just a minute to power the systems before it can power itself again. That's what that was for me.
Cool.
It was that extra battery power from other people, if you will.
Yeah.
How do I feel now? I feel like a corner is being turned in our lives, and we're starting to look at what life is going to be like moving forward. And it's almost bookended by those two special sports moments.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah.
By Arsenal to start, and then I can't even count the months now. 5 months later, by taking my son to College World Series game, and then of course seeing Tennessee win it all. Again, the sports don't matter as much, not even close, but they're markers, right? Yeah. They're markers, and again, opportunities to feel a little bit seen. By family, by God, if you're a person of faith, or by the universe, or whatever you want to call it. And so that's where I feel right now. Like cool. I feel empowered enough that the overwhelming decisions that are ahead, a lot of them about what life looks like, about what pre-K looks like, and some ongoing medical treatment. I feel empowered enough to do the next right thing, knowing that tomorrow is too big for me to handle, and so is next week. But I can usually do what's right in front of me. And that's what I've learned over the last few months.
It's very fascinating because I feel like as I get older, I try to learn more like Buddhist and more Zen things, because I think being raised, especially in a Western culture, almost everything we're taught is, well, what can you control? What is in your control? And I think it's like, I don't know, so much of life is just finding balance. And I'm natural to be like, well, I have to control everything, or let everything go, or control everything, or let everything go. And it's like, you control what you can, you let go of what you can't. And that's basically how you mature as a person, is that fine balance, and how do you interact with that as you get older.
It's hard, right? And my aunt, who's a wonderful person, went through a similar ordeal with her husband as what I'm going through with my wife now, similar medical condition. And she said one time to me, through all of this, she said that a doctor told her, this is the life you've been given, live it.
Yep.
Acceptance, action.
Yep.
And that's not to say we can't mourn. We should, shouldn't, we should. If anything, I probably am guilty of not taking time to sit in those feelings, right? I want to move forward. But at some point you have no choice. And that's where I'm at.
Pretty much, especially whenever you have little kids. Because like if Cameron's waking up in bed, like, this go look at trains, this go do this, and you're feeling heavy because of the weight of what you did, what your previous day was, you can take a beat and say, yeah, man, give me a second. Yeah. But like, it is this weird acknowledgement of like, I'm glad you in the moment were able to realize that your son cannot be the source of like your strength. He can be something that's part of your life, but like, you can't make your 3-year-old responsible for your emotional conditions. Like that's never going to be a healthy relationship.
It's hard. My birthday was up in Canada during all this, and things had gotten a little better, but it was still hard at that point. This is late March. And, my son was a very 3-year-old in one moment before bed. And he said, I don't love you, Daddy. Yeah. He says, I love you 20 times a day, by the way. Yeah. So I know this is not personal, but it was kind of a breaking point moment for me. And I just hung my head and started crying. And then he started bawling because he's like, I hurt Dad's feelings.
I didn't know this could happen.
Buddy. And I had to tell him the next day, you are not responsible for my feelings.
Pretty much.
You can't be. You can't carry that weight.
Nope.
But man, such brightness did he instill. And in so many of those days, I would just look for an excuse to get out of the house with him and find a random adventure. And the best thing about a toddler is they are so very easily entertained until they're not, by the way.
Yeah. Yep. Pretty much. Yep.
So
I don't like this place. And then 2 seconds later, this place is good.
Right. Well, and the beauty of where he's at now, he's obsessed with trains right now. Just obsessed. Well, Trains built the city of Omaha. Like,
did they really?
Union Pacific is headquartered here. They have all kind of like 8 train museums within like an hour radius of here, all kinds of train yards and tracks. And so that's been our regimen pretty much every other day or so. We're going to find a train museum, or just literally like driving around seeing train yards and watching freight trains unload. And that's enough for him right now. And it won't be for much longer. So I'm going to savor that.
Pretty much. Did you find it hard to figure out how to entertain a 3-year-old like in cities you hadn't been in before? Did you start like Googling like what to do in Ottawa with a 3-year-old and finding Instagram influencers and all the random stuff you do?
I wish that it would be easily transmitted for me to show you my map of places I want to go and have been in the city of Omaha, Nebraska.
Yes.
So much research. And, Omaha also, by the way, has like the best zoo in the country. I don't know if you
really
knew that. Nobody knows that. No. I didn't know that. It's like up there with San Diego.
Okay.
But the locals here have been so kind to help us. And yes, the research was copious to the point that somebody'd be like, oh, have you heard about this train thing or that, whatever? And like, yep, it's on my map. It's on my, like,
map.
people here marvel at how much we are out and about. And my wife is able to go with us for so many of those things.
That's
part
great.
of her therapy is to do that. And so, within reason, she can do those things with us. And so, yes, we have endlessly researched and kind of treated this like a grand adventure. And,
Cool.
For a toddler, every day is an adventure.
Yep.
Again, those adventures often go sideways, but
Yep.
everything is so new and so exciting. And he's a very verbal kid, so you always know what he's thinking. And so it's been exhilarating to live that joy with him and to do things as a family together when he didn't see his mom for 2.5 months. Through this. Now they're able to spend every day together. She goes and sleeps down the hill in her room, but other than that, we're pretty much together most of the day, and that's been a delight.
That's awesome. I'm gratitude for you that you also have a job that's able to work all of this, and to have all that be part of it is just very lucky.
My boss said, when you think about working, go take a walk. If you're still wanting to work, take another walk.
Cool.
And then after those walks, if you still want to work, talk to me, and we'll direct your energy towards something that we really, really need, as opposed to just giving you busy work.
That's awesome.
And so that's been just a huge blessing.
This is a good natural segue. What do you actually do for a job? I know you work for a tire company. I've hit you up for your tire knowledge in the past month or so. What do you do for a career or for a job?
So I'm the North American spokesperson for Nokian Tires. It is the Nashville-based tire company nobody has heard of.
Pretty much.
Everybody's like, oh, you work for Bridgestone, you work for Hankook. I used to work for Hankook, not anymore. So we're Finnish. We invented the winter tire. We have a factory in Dayton, Tennessee, just north of Chattanooga, which is the Tennessee connection and why we have a Nashville presence. And so I've been there almost 6 years. So I, in addition to being the spokesperson and doing interviews and things like that, I also put together our content plans, our social media plans. I do some work around our factory, some PR work, host events there, and do our influencer work as well. So it's a bit of a varied job at a very small place, 9-person marketing team. So a lot of
Wait. Did you just say influencer team? Are there tire influencers?
Kind of. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's more like lifestyle influencers. Like
okay, cool.
We kind of portray ourselves as a Scandinavian lifestyle brand. Okay. So like my third month on the job, I traveled up to the Arctic Circle to our test facility in the middle of January and took like 6 North American lifestyle influencers. So like think about like a Subaru driving ski nerd. Like that's kind of our vibe. Okay. And so that's the type of people that we took to Finland to go chase reindeer and drive on frozen lakes and watch the Northern Lights.
Fascinating.
It's a fun job. It is equal parts empowering, fulfilling, challenging, but also really fun. And I don't know what that looks like moving forward in terms of like the travel I've gotten to do. Typically about 15% of my job is traveling. I'll be in Europe for the grand opening of a tire factory in September.
Cool.
But I don't know what that looks like in the future. I think, I kind of looking at it as I had 6 years to travel and see the world in this job. And now I get to be very close to home. And I kind of build my life around trying to be, I think we all want to be valued, right? I'm an Enneagram 3. I know you're into that because Stephen Mason.
I'm a 4.
You're a 4, yeah. Yep. I'm not an expert in that, but I know my type. And the 3s want to be visible. They want to be seen as being have it together. And at this stage of my life, I'm going to have to be a very non-3 because the focus is going to be internal, taking care of my people first. And it was always a passion of mine to make sure my wife and my son were taken care of. But I'm going to have to pass up some really cool opportunities to be visible so that I can be visible to the people that matter most. And I think it's going to be a great perspective shifter for me. And it really already has been.
Yeah. Now, if you are a 3, the best way I know how to phrase stuff is like when you walk into a room, you will try to figure out how to either be or be seen as the most successful person in that room. And what's challenging about that is your definition of success changes every single room. So you have the opportunity to be a chameleon because no matter what the conversation is, some part of you is like, unless I am seen as one of the best people here, I'm not worthy of love.
Yeah.
Which isn't true, but it's what your psyche tells you.
It fits. John Mulaney said it so well. I don't know if he was talking about the Enneagram, but he says his wife teases him that he walks around town all day and she says, it's like you're running to be the mayor of nothing.
Basically, yes.
It's like, what am I politicking for? Like in college, I was the guy who was in every club. But then barely had time to sit down with my friends at the end of the day and, do stupid stuff in the dorm, which is what college is made of, by the
Pretty
way.
much. Yep.
And yeah, that's a real challenge for me. I've often gone a mile wide, inch deep. I want to be known,
Yeah.
and it's great to be known. There's nothing wrong with that
Yep.
inherently. But when it comes at the expense of being seen, really truly seen,
Yep.
then that can be a detriment. And this last little phase has reminded me and helped me also teach my son that it's those relationships that matter the most. It's not how many, your life is not driven by metrics. It just can't be.
No. Yeah, no, it's really, I mean, I'm a definite 4 with like a 5 wing, meaning that like, unless honestly, Enneagram discusses a lot of childhood wounds. Now, here you are as an adult using a defense mechanism you created whenever you're like 5 or 6, but you're now 37 and 38, still stuck in a 5-year-old's mentality and stuff. So for me, it's that I would be unless I am unique or I'm original and I'm different than everyone else in the room, I don't think I'm worth loving or worth knowing. And like, I think the Enneagram for me has been super helpful because once I know that's what I'm doing, then I'm able to counteract that inertia. So yeah, if you walk into a room and you're like, how do I make sure to know everyone here who looks like they can gain me something to some extent, for lack of a prettier way to put it, then you sit down and be like, hey man, who can you make a genuine connection with in this room?
Right. Like one great deep conversation at a party should be better than having 20 handshakes and sounding important. It's something I've learned, and even in recent days, like as I'm even trying to provide for my family and be quote productive, and because the other part of a 3 is you always have to feel like our legs are churning. We don't sit well, right?
Nope.
And I've had to learn and remind myself that my presence is the best form of productivity. That I have a lot of work to do, and I've got I'm looking right now at the dishes in the sink, and I don't love my chores, but I like feeling like I'm doing something, pop on a podcast and be in the zone and get things done. I've got the to-do list, but the relationship is the work. It's not just, it doesn't just facilitate the work. And that's true at work, but it's so true with my son when, if I even set an alarm today. I set a 10-minute clock during the middle of the workday, and I said 10 minutes, I'm going to put the phone on the other side of the room so I can hear the alarm. I'm just going to play with my son. And screw work, screw chores. My wife is busy with rehab therapy. She doesn't need me right now.
But your son does.
Yeah, he does. That presence is productive because ultimately the relationship is the work. The work is just tangential.
It's a really weird moment to realize. Like, I also believe that like whatever room, whatever environment you walk into, you are usually looking for validation of some sort. Ideally, that validation comes from within. I'm still figuring out how that is a consistent reality. So if you can realize that like in so many moments of your day, you are actually the one who's defining success, then you can do moments like that. And then you can be like, hey, Wes, today, success is putting your phone in a different room for 10 minutes. No one's going to need for those 10 minutes, but your son will remember those 10 minutes. And that is success today.
Yeah. And this whole life situation I'm in has simplified the scope. I feel like, I actually randomly wrote like a poem / song like a year ago at a time when our family was making some tough decisions about where we were going to move and what life would look like. And I felt like there were too many options. I've had a pretty predictable life, and there were too many options. And I wrote about how sometimes when life is so sunny, when you can see every option in front of you, it's overwhelming, and actually you get blinded by that sunlight. And what I really needed at that point actually were, some clouds. I didn't mean clouds of adversity, but just something to dim the scope of those choices and simplify. And then this happened, and this is not the cloud I wanted, but
you prayed for a cloud, Wes.
Gosh, and I didn't mean it like this. God, it's like, no, and I have to laugh or I'm going to cry.
Of course.
But there is something freeing about traveling through darkness because you have no other choice but to take the next step in front of you. In the light, you can be overwhelmed by the array of options. In the darkness, you can only travel the path before you, but you have to be the light. You have to shine to see your way forward. And to your point about that internal validation, I've always, pursued that external affirmation to the point that my wife has teased me, or friends have teased me, like, we can sometimes just say nice job and that's it. We don't have to fawn all over you. But I've got to be the light now. I have to be able to be content with that and to just shine and follow the path we've been given right now. And then hopefully we're in a situation down the road where the light's back and we actually have a million choices that we have to make. For right now, it's just one step in front of the other.
It's a weird moment in life whenever you really, because sadly, a lot of being a parent is telling your child no about
Mm-hmm.
some things. And I feel like when you get older, you realize that a no actually opens up a lot of yeses at the
Yeah.
same time.
Yeah.
But you can't tell a 2.5-year-old that, like, because they don't know you can't have the gummies. But here's literally like 20 other things you can have. But you
Yep.
can't have fruit snacks right now. You've not eaten food for like 2 hours. I can't just give you sugar. But we can draw, we can color, we can do this, we can do that. But sometimes all you hear is the no, and you just see the door shut in your face.
That's it.
And at some point in time, you get older and you're like, okay, that's a no, but there are a lot of yeses. Now that I know that this isn't an option, look at what other options are available to me.
Yeah. And when you make your world smaller, you can actually make it bigger in a lot of ways.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. I want to make sure to give you an opportunity to plug your podcast.
Awesome.
Tell us about your podcast, because that's how I actually know who you are, is from listening to your podcast.
Yeah, so I co-host the Club and Country podcast. I was fortunate enough when Nashville SC got off the ground in USL to be part of their radio team through some random connections and through my broadcast past. And um, about the same time I was getting involved with that, Tim Sullivan was starting a website, clubandcountry.com, clubcountryusa.com. I should probably get that right. To cover the team as well. And so we knew each other. We were in the same room, the same press conferences, but and we weren't, and we liked each other, but we didn't hang out. We didn't have beers. We weren't, close. We respected each other's work, and we were around each other a lot, semi-professionally.
And that would be a bearded Irish beer that you didn't have together. Is that correct?
It would be a home
okay,
style,
cool. Making
of course,
sure.
yes. And so we got to know each other through that. I know you had Braden Gall on recently. And by the way, folks, if you hadn't listened to that, I'll give the plug here. You need to. It's a great discussion. Tremendous discussion.
Great appreciation of Braden to be able to discuss social media, what it's like to be a personality in sports and have death threats given to you on a regular basis.
And also your daughter's farting.
Your daughter's farting. And how you can't fart, but they can. And just, I appreciate his honesty and his sincerity, because going from here's how I survived the pandemic with 2 kids to my kid is farting and it's hilarious. It's just a full range of what reality is as a parent.
Well, and my side of that whole story with him was I was sitting on a back patio of our good buddy John Freeman's house, now the voice of UVA basketball and football, and then Nashville SC voice. We were sitting during the pandemic having a socially distanced beer, and Braden was like, "Hey, what if I started this podcast network that took things a little less seriously and was purely local and all the things that it is now? Would you ever want to be a part of that?" And he's talking to me and a couple of their Nashville media folks there. And I was like, I don't know if the team would let me do that. I'm kind of their, at that point, color analyst.
Yeah.
I called him back in January of the next year. I was like, hey, maybe we should do that. Who else are you thinking about inviting to this? And he said, Tim Sullivan. And I said, yeah, I'm in.
Cool.
I'm in. Because Tim is so credible. And so, I kind of play sometimes the dumb moderator and he plays the analyst. I like to think I can also analyze and get into that too, but that's our.
You bring the personality, Wes. You bring the personality to the stats. Okay, that's what you do.
Let him know that you think I'm the personality of that show. He'll be devastated.
Small sample size.
By the way, exactly. If you, that's it. Like the 5 crossover people that listen to both of these things are all the Nashville.
Thanks for thinking it's 5. Thanks for.
Oh, I'm sure it's actually more.
It's just you and me. That's the 2 crossover people.
But it is fun too, because my approach to sports. I mean, I just mentioned how emotional I am and passionate about University of Tennessee athletics, but when I cover it, I try to be logical and pragmatic. Still have fun and still have emotion, but also get past the lazy narratives. And so that's what we try to do is get past narrative and get to data, but also have a lighthearted touch to it. So Club and Country podcast, 5-minute answer condensed into one little plug there. Is where you can listen if you like soccer, even a little bit. We try to be approachable enough for the new folks, but also deep enough to really provide some good nuggets.
Yeah, you guys don't do a lot of well, here's the formation we were running today, and here's what that formation meant, or you don't do like that. You're just like, hey, you know what? Here's how this player's been playing. Here's how we feel like team is going and stuff, and try to keep it I feel like you guys don't do a lot of emotional episodes of I'm so mad this game happened. You're just like, you know what? This is a game. I think we've got enough talent on the team to be better, and we'll see what happens next game.
Well, it's like life, right? When something in soccer, when one bad thing happens, you can lose 1-0, and it doesn't mean you're a total failure. You just are on the scoreboard. It's like that as dads too, right?
Pretty much.
We screw up, we yell at our kid too loud, and we have to have forgiveness for ourselves and patience for ourselves. Just like when we have a successful day, we shouldn't be such drinkers of our own Kool-Aid that we think we've got this whole thing figured out. So I feel like there's some tie-ins. 2 dads of young kids, Tim is as well, talking about soccer, and maybe those 2 tie together more closely than I thought.
Maybe. Yeah. I always use like in my head, I always think of if it's a rough morning or like where, yeah, it's like 9 a.m. and I'm already like, I'm done with a kid or two already here today. I
Yeah.
think of like a soccer game in which you go down 1-0 and I'm like, dude, you've still got like, what, 89 more minutes to play the game? Like you'll find a rhythm. You'll be fine.
Just don't get a red card. Don't do anything unforgivable. Don't get sent off.
Don't punch any players in the face
Please don't
whenever
do
you're
that.
standing next to them,
Frowned
regardless
upon.
of what they did to your goalie or said to your goalie, and
Right.
it'll be fine. Ugh. This episode is recorded after the Panama U.S. men's national team game. For all of those, once again, the small crossover of maybe one. Ben Wright, if you're listening,
give yourself some credit. Give yourself some. Braden's listening too. I'm gonna.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. He's listening to see what trash we talk about him probably. Yeah. So that's probably
more to come off the air.
That's right. Oh, here's one more question that before I do the 5 questions. How many? So I feel like you would be a master of dad jokes. Did the dad jokes come after you became a dad, or did you already have the dad jokes and then you became a dad?
No, when I turned like 6 or 7, like it's you talk to friends of mine from like middle school and high school, and they'll tell you I was all in on puns. I did speech and debate in high school, and so that was part of it. But also, I like my whole speech one year that was based on puns. I did all year long. Didn't do very well, shockingly. Judges didn't seem to like it. So, when I became a dad, my in-laws got me like a dad jokes book, and I was like, are you kidding me? Do you know me? Like, yeah, I know all these. I'm good. I've got it. It's I put the pun in punishment for all of my friends and family, as you can see. And so it is. It being a dad just kind of was the icing on the cake, but the cake was baked a long time ago.
This was born. Do you have a go-to dad joke? This isn't one of the 5 end of the episode questions. I know.
My favorite is actually not, well, of course there's, what did the fish say when he hit the brick wall? Damn. That's a good one. But my favorite is just finding a pun in any situation. That's the best, is not even having a specific joke to tell, but just making a joke out of a sentence. And then smiling real big and
being like, you get it?
Yeah. And my wife always judges it. And then I finally got her to admit that actually her grandmother, who she loved, did the same thing. And I'm like, oh, that's what you see in me. There it is. I get it. It's I remind you in some way of another person in your life who's special to you. So
yes,
that's what it is. And the good looks, of course.
Yeah, of course, mostly. Yeah. All right. Back to me attempting to do the 5 questions to wind down the episode. So, first question, did you have any backup names for Cameron, or names you almost named him?
Yeah, we had a second place, but a couple months out, we made our decision, and we did find out the gender, so that was not going to be a concern. So, the backup, so his name is Cameron Gerald, and Cameron is not a family name; it's just a name we liked. Gerald is at least his great uncle, who actually also really big on the puns. Very special person to her, and by extension to me, who passed away all too soon. So that's his name. The backup was Oliver James, because we liked it and we wanted something. Our goal with the name was just something that wouldn't make people cock their heads like that's a name, but also wasn't something you'd hear every day in every classroom. And after we named him Cameron Gerald, Cameron had a little time in the NICU, not much, but a little bit. And he was next to a baby named Oliver James.
Oh, seriously?
and I guess that was maybe the trendy name of the year in 2020. What? I don't know, pandemic baby. I like the name, I still do, but cool. I think we at least haven't met another Cameron Gerald yet. But Oliver James was the second place.
Okay, cool. Also, one of my favorite things about doing a dad podcast is getting to a moment like that and be like, oh, dude, we didn't even get into what it was like birthing a child during the pandemic, because that's something almost everyone who's a dad now has experienced and has their own battle stories from.
God, how hard was that, man? I mean, and Lisa's parents were in Canada. We couldn't get across the border until Cameron was almost a year old. So they didn't meet him until the month before his first birthday.
What? Which
was really hard. To the point that like he just thought they were FaceTime characters.
Yeah.
When he was super little. Yeah, it's hard. We all have our stories like that.
At some point in time, we as a podcast will figure out how to do follow-up episodes and have the mental space to do that.
Yeah, we might need to remove ourselves a few more years from the trauma of all that before we can talk about it.
Before you're like, okay, I can discuss some trauma, but that one's a little too raw.
Rough.
Okay, I'm interested for your answer for this one. Who is your favorite TV dad?
So, of course, The first one that comes to everybody's mind is Bandit.
Yeah, it's
Besides
Bandit.
a huge blue face. So I'm just going to skip that one.
Yep.
Skip that answer, that is, and go to my own answer. I thought a bit about this. I think it's Phil Dunphy from Modern Family.
Yep. Solid answer.
Yeah, I mean, that unbridled joy and curiosity. He's a caricature in some ways, as a character, as you need to be in a sitcom.
Mm-hmm.
But I love that he errs on the side of purity and naivete, in his interest in his kids. I think I love improv and comedy and the idea of yes-anding a situation. He's the ultimate yes-ander for his kids, and he's always going to lead the adventure, but also follow their passions, emotional, available, but also, deep when he needs to be.
Yeah.
WTF, why the face? I say that all the time. You go back to asking whether the dad jokes were something that were just innate in me or came when I became a dad. I mean, when I was 26 and just first started dating my future wife, she would joke that I was Phil Dunphy. This is long before we ever had kids. So I'm sure that's an answer you guys have gotten from time to time.
It's still a good answer. It's a solid answer.
Yeah, I love the unbridled joy and optimism and hope that he brings to the table. I hope I'm not as naive as he is. But again, some of that has to be a caricature when you're a sitcom. So
yeah, of course.
But
it was also
always and forever Bandit.
It's also funny because most of this episode you talked about the balance of being an optimist and then realizing you need to be a realist. And Phil Dunphy is an optimist who has figured out how to be a realist because he has 3 kids.
Yes, that will bring you down to earth, and it brings him down to earth. And
pretty much.
Sometimes a model plane smacks him in the face.
That's right. Next question. Do you have a least favorite kids show? Like whenever Cameron watches it, you're like, all right, I'm done. I can't. This is the worst show I've ever seen.
There's so many options these days that we try to steer him away from the worst of the worst. Because now he just wants to watch videos of model trains on YouTube, which is mutual satisfaction there. I love it too.
That's awesome.
So I think of the ones that I try to steer him away from. I think SpongeBob is probably there. Like maybe it's really funny once you watch it for a while. It just seems really annoying to me and zany and stupid in all the worst ways. And so I'm just going to not learn more about it and just stick to that answer of ignorance and say it looks obnoxious. And so I will avoid it.
That's fair. What about favorite kids toy? Like when Cameron plays with it, you actually enjoy doing it also.
We're going back to the trains again.
Yeah, man, I figured.
I love it. And I mean, I've traveled a lot in Europe with my wife too. Like that, if I could change one thing about our country, well, there'd be a lot. But one of the very physical,
small sample size.
Yes, one of the practical things I would change would be our lack of passenger rail infrastructure. So I love that stuff. And so, we've got one train set, we got a subway train. Like we just took his trains with us to Omaha and set them up, and that's fun for me. He never does it right. He's 3. That's probably I should lead. I should follow rather than leading. I think I'm learning, but there's been a time or two when he's gone to bed and I run the trains just a little bit. The brio, and it's nice and simple.
I think it's funny. I feel like whenever you're a parent, your kid starts to do something where you know a lot about it and you want to correct them. And I find like I've let the girls play some like Lego Harry Potter games on like PlayStation. Mm-hmm. And whenever I'm like, no, this is actually really easy. It's Devin, just stop talking. Let them explore. Let them make mistakes in the Lego Harry Potter world. It doesn't matter. But my first instinct is to grab the controller and be like, no, you just do this and you're fine. And I'm like, Devin, who did that help? How'd that help? No one. You're just being a jerk.
As somebody who suffers from, more than a bit of generalized anxiety in day-to-day life, it gives me anxiety to see something unresolved and you want to teach. But the lesson of teaching by taking your hands off, maybe I'll learn that by the time I have grandchildren. I don't know. It's hard.
I think you literally have to find like a Buddhist Zen master of some sort and read their writings, because they're like, you did this for 80 years. And at year 80, you're still like, I'm not very good at this. So therefore, I must accept that I'm bad at this, and then hope by accepting I'm bad at something, I then somehow become good at it.
Oh, see, that's about the only hope I can rely on is
pretty much
acceptance getting me the rest of the way.
Yep.
That's about it.
Okay. So you already answered moment of your kid's life you're most excited to be a part of, which was taking your son to a UT game, and you took him to the ultimate UT experience. I was going to do subject you now know way too much about since you become a dad. It's clearly trains. It is clearly trains.
Trains, probably in dinosaurs.
I'm going to hit you with, this is my favorite random question to ask dads, besides subject you now know a lot about. I'm giving you like 7 questions now.
Bring it.
What is your go-to replacement curse word? Like when you stub your toe, Cameron's in the room, you want to yell the F word or something like that, but the second you do, he'll repeat it for the next week. What do you yell in that moment?
It's an unintelligible yell. There's not even a word. Like it just exactly. It's like, and my wife, even before Cameron was around, she used to come running like, "What's wrong? Are you okay?" It's like you died. To make a stub my toe, and now she just, shrugs and that's it. It's there's not really a word. I've not been a big like cusser anyway in my life.
Okay.
It's hadn't really, because we weren't like that wasn't done in the house. Mom one time backed into a brick wall in the driveway and she yelled out, sham. Like she wanted to say, we combined two words. That's kind of where I was raised. So that's not where my mind naturally goes, but like just an unintelligible scream, like
Cool. You express, just not in words.
Yeah, but the last few months, the F word's been dropped a few.
You found a curse word or two that you agreed with.
Kind of feel like I feel like nobody's going to judge me for that.
No,
I'm not judging myself for it from time to time either.
Nor should you. The other way we end our episodes, always give you an opportunity to plug. So if you want to like promote your Instagram handle or Club and Country or any other minivans, that'd be great.
The Pacifica podcast. I mean, the Club and Country podcast is a good place to start. It doesn't have its own Twitter account. It's just Club Country USA is Tim's kind of site or handle that he uses for his website for the show. I'm Wes Boling, TN, Boling, the sport without the W. I have a good brand content strategy for my company on social media and not for myself. So at any one moment, I might be rambling about soccer or other live sports. I might be ruminating very vaguely about politics. I try not to use the buzzword names and get followed by all the bots, but just talking more principle than politics. And then, what I've been going through lately, I try to share little nuggets I've learned without going too deep into the specifics. And so love a follow and a conversation there. As toxic as Twitter can be, I try to be a light, except when I'm trolling Vanderbilt fans, which does. Every now and then I'll do a Twitter purge. Like, why did I even go there with that person?
Why did they do that? Yep.
That's elite. So those are good places. I am public on Instagram,
cool.
Just Wes Boling on there, and I don't mind anybody following me there either.
Yep, and we'll tag you in the post, all that good stuff.
Perfect.
But sincerely, Wes, you're sitting in Omaha in a rehab center with your wife and your child and everything, and you're taking the time to do an episode and just letting us know what's going on in your life. So sincerely, thank you. Thank you so much for taking time.
Thanks for sharing your story. This is the life I've been given. I'm going to live it. And that's my biggest encouragement to everybody else.
Wes, thank you so much, man. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Devin.
Appreciate it, Wes. Thank you. Thanks so much for listening. Please make sure to follow us on Instagram and Facebook at the Nashville Dads, and make sure to follow us on anywhere you find your podcast, and please give us a 5-star rating. And thank you to Matt Oakes for providing the music for the episode. Catch you next time.